All right. So I was gonna do a video about the kingdom this time, but I'm actually gonna do a video about consciousness. I want to explain that to the best of my ability, because nobody really knows what consciousness is. Um, but one thing that is known is that when a person leaves their body, they feel the exact same way. I mean, they feel just as conscious as they did when they were in their body. So when they die and the body is dead, the heart stops beating, the brain functions stop working, all those things, they still feel as if they have like a mind, you know, which is interesting. Now, the reason that they feel that way is because consciousness, your consciousness right now, your awareness, that is you. That's actually you, your consciousness, your awareness. The fact that the ability to be aware that you are, that is your awareness. Like that is your consciousness. The fact that you exist, the fact that you animate the consciousness that animates this body, the consciousness that makes a difference between when you're holding a person's hand before they pass away and after they pass away, and something's different. The hand feels more plastic and biodegradable. It feels more shellish afterwards, as opposed to right before that. That consciousness is what animates the body, and that consciousness is the exact same thing as the spirit. It's the thing that leaves the body when the body dies. So consciousness and the spirit are the exact same thing. When you start to realize that, changes everything. In my opinion, it changed everything when I realized that consciousness and the spirit were the exact same thing. Now, what makes that even more powerful is that consciousness is not just a spirit. It's not just a being. It's also a place. It's a realm in and of itself. There are different levels of consciousness within each other. Just like there's this realm, and then you can shrink yourself down to the atomic level, and then the subatomic level, and then there's the quarks, and then there's probably something under that. But at the base level, you get all the way down to energy, which is the potential for everything that exists. So you can sing down and further and further and further and further and further until you get to the source. You know what I'm trying to say? So it's the exact same thing. At the source of your consciousness is the source of consciousness. Most people call it God. You are always connected to that. There's never been a separation between that unless your consciousness assumes a separation. Just like Adam, who hid himself from the presence of God, it's the exact same thing. So consciousness being a realm, the best way to understand that, the realm of consciousness is the kingdom. At the seat of the throne of consciousness is God. That is the king's domain, dwelling from that point all the way out, experiencing itself through you. So consciousness is a realm as well, just not just a place. That's why Jesus says, I abide in my Father, and my Father abides in me. This, what you experience outside of you, is also consciousness. The wall is made up of consciousness. Atoms, quarks, all that shit, consciousness. It's all made of consciousness. Everything is created from that. Everything is like, just like in your imagination. If you imagine, I like to say refrigerator, but let's say, yeah, let's imagine the sun. Imagine looking at the sun in the sky. And some of you, when you pull away from that, you'll have sunspots in your eyes because your mind is convinced that you actually just saw the sun. But imagine looking at the sun. What is that sun made of? It has color. It probably has some type of depth. You have like some three-dimensional depth perception. What is the thing that appears to be space between your eyes and the sun? What is that stuff? What is that made out of? Is that made of atoms? Is it made of subatomic particles? What's the sky made of? What light is reflecting to the atmosphere in your mind that keeps the sky from being every color and just blue? You know what I'm saying? And you can change the color of the sky, just change mine to green. But what is that green made of? You see what I'm saying? That is consciousness. All in that realm is made of consciousness. But what we fail to believe or refuse to believe is that this realm is the exact same way. It's all consciousness. It's all made of consciousness, just like in that realm. And just like when you go to sleep at night and you have a dream, and those beings in your dream, you know, they come to you and they can talk to you and have conversations. They can give you wisdom that you didn't know. They can come to you and you can look them in their eyes and see that they have life in them. That is consciousness. But The consciousness in them is your consciousness. It's a division, a split, though it's still one. It's a split of consciousness. So it appears that their consciousness is something outside of you when they're one consciousness. And that consciousness is you speaking to yourself, even though you don't know what that consciousness is going to say to you. It's the exact same thing as on earth. If God was to dwell on earth, let's just say Jesus, God was to dwell on earth, he'd be looking at himself in every single or itself in every single individual. As it does that, there's the appearance of separation. But it knows that it is in its dream awake. And now it can interact with these other consciousness that are also in the dream asleep. So it's because you can literally go to sleep, wake up in your dream, and say you want to see or you want to interact with the uh like the younger version of yourself, like the adolescent version of yourself, and an image, a thing, a person will pop up that embodies that source of consciousness or that part of your psyche, that part of your consciousness. It'll pop up and it'll have its own awareness. It'll have its own mind. It'll think for itself, just like I think for myself and you think for yourself, but we're the exact same mind. This mind in your dream is the exact same mind, and it thinks for itself to the point where it will shock you at what it says and its wisdom and its knowledge and its insight. Not only will it shock you and amaze you, it is you, though it has a different bodily form, though it might not look like you or sound like you or act like you. What you're looking at through its eyes is your soul, even though you're also the soul. Now, if that doesn't trip you out enough, the space in between you and that character is you. The sky above you is you. The ground that is you. The dust is you. All the attention and detail, all these things are created from consciousness, your consciousness. That consciousness is a realm, a place where you can go and dwell, but it is also your very own spirit. God is the exact same way. God is not just a being in the center of heaven, God is heaven. Consciousness is all. That's why they would call God the all, because God is everything that exists. Not some things, not that's not God, that's not God. Everything is God, even the things that are anti God are God, because God is all that could exist. God is existence. Without God, nothing could exist. If it exists, it's created or made up of God. That's what consciousness is. It is God. That's what consciousness is, the offspring of God. Consciousness is the closest thing that resembles God. And you and I have it. Consciousness is the only thing that resembles God. That's what Jesus says. Spirit gives birth to spirit. Consciousness gives birth to consciousness. That's what the spirit is. It's consciousness. It gives birth to consciousness. Then that place is the realm, also known as the kingdom. That's what Jesus talks about. You go there to create all things. That consciousness, or yeah, but consciousness is also the kingdom that is outside of you as well. So it's like, yeah, I guess it's everything that I just already said. A place, a being, thing, all this different stuff. But yeah, I guess what I really want to get across is just the fact that God made us like them or Him. Spirit made us like spirit, and when we go to sleep, we become very God-like because we enter into a realm of our own creation that has beings that exist that aren't necessarily conscious of who we are and what we can and cannot do, but they are in that realm and they exist. They have a life that we have given them, and we can go and speak with them and interact with them. And then we can look at this nature. We can go and smell a plant and say, this plant is made of me. And this smell is made of me. But I can enjoy this plant. I can enjoy this person over here. I can enjoy this conversation with this being here. Or I can go to this wise looking individual, which represents the aspect of my consciousness that knows everything, and ask it any question, and it give me a response. My own consciousness, as if it's a separate entity from me, but being the exact same entity. And not only is that being not separate from me, but there is no space between me and the thing that appears to be at a distance from me. Just like that door, there really is no space that separates us. That's an illusion. It's an illusion created by this like three dimensional laws. You know, it's an illusion so that we can interact with this infrastructure in a way that is, conducive to the actual goal. The same thing with the holodeck or with the danger room. Consciousness is the exact same thing. You step into that realm as if it actually exists, but this is all in the mind. So much to the point where I'm not actually sitting here. I'm just experiencing this dimension as if I'm sitting here. Very, very interesting. Consciousness is a great mystery. But yeah, I mean, once we start seeing it as not just a brain function and not just a mind, but when you start to see it as your spirit, it's so easy to like correctly operate. And let me say one last thing about consciousness. Um, Consciousness is all, and all dwells in consciousness. Man, I had to talk about the holographic universe. I guess I'll do that in a different video. But let me just say it really quickly in this one. Um, Science has figured out that the universe is a hologram, meaning that in every portion of the universe, it's microscopic, every portion, the entire universe is contained in that thing. Let's put it this way. Let's just say that in every cell is a me. Let's just say that within every cell is a body with cells that has a body with cells that has a body with cells. Like when you look at to put a camera in the mirror and it's never ending, it's the exact same thing. With the universe is holographic, and when you take a real hologram, not the ones that come on like bank cards, when you take a real hologram, you can cut it into pieces, individual pieces, and every piece that you cut up will be a whole, not a piece. So if you have one hologram and you cut it into six pieces, you don't get six pieces of that hologram that you would puzzle together. You get six individual holograms and six individual whole units of that thing. Your consciousness is a individual whole unit of a hologram. Your consciousness is an individual unit of a hologram. It would be like somebody took the consciousness that is God and chopped it up into individual fragments. That one piece embodies the whole, and that is what you have. That's the reason why your entire being is not incarnated in that body, because it couldn't take all that you actually are. And it's the reason why the phrase or the saying from Pythagoras, man, know thyself. If you know what you actually are, if you know that, then you will know the universe, because the entire whole of creation that has been created up until this point dwells in you. Why? Because the universe is holographic, and in every aspect of the universe is the whole. So you are an aspect of that. You are consciousness, meaning that within you dwells all that ever existed. Because God is consciousness, and within God dwells all that ever existed. It's the exact same. You are like those little Russian dolls. When you pull off one, there's a smaller one on the inside, and you pull that one out, there's a smaller one on the inside. You pull that one out, there's a smaller one on the inside. Never ending cycle. It's the exact same thing. I abide in him, and he abides in me. But I abide in him, so he abides in me. So I abide in him. It's the exact same thing. Never ending cycle. That what's that infinity thing? Abiding. Where does the line end? When does it begin? Nobody knows. Can't tell. So that's consciousness. Small individuations of one whole, but at the exact same time, not individual or separated at all, and containing the whole that dwells outside of itself. It's a very, I guess you would call it paradoxical. What's on the inside is also on the outside, and what's on the outside is contained fully on the inside, even though this thing seems to dwell within. But what's without dwells within. You know what I'm trying to say? Is amazing. Okay, so in this video, this was another one, kind of long one too. Thank you folks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.